Hey guys! All right. Well, it's been a while. How's everybody doing? Um, so just to give you a little bit of a heads up, I usually have the chats streaming right above my head right here. For some reason, I can't get it to log into the proper channel for me to be able to get that working. So maybe next time. We'll have to see. Anyway, it's good to see y'all. How y'all been? Since I can't get logged in properly to the to the restream chat, I'll be yeah, you're having the same problem with OBS. Yeah, it's not just the OBS, it's the restream thing that's giving me problems. Because I can turn it on just fine. It's just that for some reason, when I put in the Pixelogic login, it still logs me into my own, and it's just kind of a pain in the neck. But yeah. Anyway, so I'll be going through and trying to jump back and forth to the different channels, so that I can see what's see what's going on, see what's up. Too safe and too healthy. Is there such thing as too safe and too healthy? All right. So for anybody who follows my Instagram, I went ahead and I put up a bit of a questionnaire box, a question box, trying to see what your guys' ideas for what you'd like to see for today's stream would be. I got all sorts of suggestions. I got things from fashion to Kratos to Tsunami, which is like this mermaid that I did yesterday for Mermaid. Um, some draw this in your style sort of stuff. And then one of the ones that was really quite popular was this kind of poll from. Let's see if we can see this. There's this poll from what's her name? Evidence Suarez. She's really good. I kind of get that in closer. Some really neat stuff. So, on the one side, on the left, we've got this girl with a sword, kind of Mulan pose sort of style with some armor and stuff. It's kind of cool. If I were to do that one, I'd probably do just like shoulders up, and maybe try to get the sword sculpted in and posed and whatnot, and pose the hands. I don't know. We'll see. And then we got like the mermaid over on the right. Um, Figured I'd ask you guys, what would you like to see? Yeah, since you're the ones that are here right now. Uh, this is kind of fun. Trying to pull up different ideas that I saw on the Instagrams. Um, Somebody said make my own, and that seems to be fairly popular. I do have a couple of things that I could work on. Like for instance, since we're here, might as well go ahead and open things up. Let's see. No, come on. Good golly, I'm trying to think of what in the world it was that I was just thinking about. I had it and then I lost it. I had it and then I lost it. That's so dumb. Do you ever do that? I do that way too often. By the way, let me know if you guys can hear me or if you can't hear me very well or whatever. So here's an instance of something that I started on as like a class project. That material is super terrible for this. It's terrible for anything really. Let's go ahead and fill material. So I've got this. I mean, she's not quite going in the direction that I'd like, so it is what it is. I've got got a couple of base meshes that I can work with. Yeah, so I've got this that I can go ahead and turn into something. I've got, let me see, what was I working on the other day? I've got my other side, I've got, I don't remember what that one is. I don't think I've actually started it. The mermaid one? Yeah, the mermaid one does look chill. I really like the idea of that one. Sound is perfect? Awesome. What add-on did I use to reset my colors? To reset my colors inside of ZBrush? Is that what you're talking about, Randy? If you're just looking to be able to reset your colors, you can come up here to the top. I can't remember which button it is, but you can come up to the top and kind of reset it through there for the artwork. Oh, I got you. I got you. I'll show you here in a second. In fact, let's go here right now. So what you've got, if your model is all super just berserk, bonkers, absolutely crazy yuck with the way that it looks material-wise, you just pick your material that you want to change to, and you go to Z plugin, down to subtool master. This is a native plugin, so it's not something you have to go through, download, and install. It's really, really nice. Subtool master, and you go to fill. That fill will give you options to be able to fill color, material, or both. So I usually just use it for the material. It's also useful for, for instance, if I wanted to go through and make it so that it's just the flat shader. If I wanted to work on painting textures or things like that, make it so it's really painterly, or if I wanted to just hand render everything, which is something I want to experiment with sometime. You go out, you click and drag your material off to the canvas. So you see you're picking the material from the canvas, you drop it, so that way it's picking your flat color. You go Z plugin, fill, material, hit OK. And you see it goes through and it makes everything just a flat color. There's no actual lighting there. So yeah, that's really fun. It's a great way to be able to check silhouette and things like that. But more than anything, it's a great way for you to be able to go in and start to actually paint textures and yeah, be able to check things in that way. So yeah, I think I like the idea of going in and doing that. Oh, not spotlight, load texture. Let's import. Okay, let's go to social. I think I have it over here in social. Yeah, it's over here in social. So let's do this mermaid. A lot of people seem to like it. So let's do that. Add that to Spotlight. Okay, so this is one of my favorite things to be able to do for reference. There are a lot of ways to bring reference into ZBrush. This is the most effective way for me because it's there. I can bookmark where it's at. Yes, we're going to set that right there. We're going to take our opacity. It's like I can never remember which button it is on this slider. I always have to hover over it and watch for the text in the middle to show up as opacity. Yeah, anyway, so that's kind of funny. So hit Z to go out of that. First thing you got to do when you bring up Spotlight reference, you got to go up to Brush and down to Samples. Hit Turn Off Spotlight Projection. The reason it's important to have Spotlight Projection off is because if it's on, you'll only be able to affect the model wherever the spotlight is overlapping it with certain brushes. For instance, like the clay brushes or the smooth brushes, different standard brushes, things like that. Okay, so we're going to do that. Let's go ahead, take this back into Skin Shade 4. Do I have a, let's see. Let me load in ZBrush. I have like a must-haves folder. I don't know if you guys keep if you guys keep a folder, things like that. I do. I'm trying to decide which model I like best for a base. I think I like this one better. There's a lot of adjusting to do to make the nose right, and to make the eyes the right size and shape and things. But I think this will be a good starting point. Okay, so let's get cracking. Okay. So I'm just gonna turn her into perspective. I'll turn perspective on and off as I go, but you know, it's useful. Okay. Let's go through and start doing some proportion changes. Sometimes what I like to do is I like to start looking around the model from the very start. Oh, you know what? It just occurred to me, it's been a long time since I've been on here. It might be good to kind of yeah, to be able to kind of go through and introduce myself a little bit. So I'm Steven Anderson. For those of you who don't know me, you can see, you know, right over, sit over there. Yeah, my right in the bottom middle of the screen, you see SMAARTIST. That's the handle I go by on pretty much any social media. So, you know, if you want to be able to find me, that's how. I've been streaming with Pixelogic since 2018, I think. I really don't remember. I speak English and Spanish fluently, so yeah, if you have questions in either language, feel free to ask. If you have questions in any language, feel free to ask. I'm sure somebody can chip in. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's get started. Turn off dynamic. I don't really need it at this point, so that I can make some better manipulations. Okay, so one of the things that you'll notice with my mesh is that it has a lot of polygroups. All these different colors are called polygroups, and they allow me to make quick and easy selections. You see, I'm able to kind of hide or select different parts of my mesh. Oops. Okay. If you have your mesh masked in part, and you want to be able to see it without having to worry about looking through the mask, you can hit Control H to hide that mask. It's really, really helpful. First time you catch me live, huh, Randy? Yeah, it's really, really fun. It's been a long time. So yeah, so the topology, it was done kind of in part in Maya and part in ZBrush, mostly in ZBrush. It's based on a lot of things that I learned from models that I worked with at Disney, at DreamWorks, and at Warner Brothers. So primarily Disney. That's the mesh that I like. Those are the meshes that I enjoyed the most and that I find to be the most useful. Why is that so? Oh, it's probably messed up. Yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, the Disney mesh is the one that I enjoyed working with the most, and so that's the one that I try to emulate the most. That's going to be too square of a jaw, so pull that up for a second. There will be a lot of adjusting, and then we'll make a lot of we'll do some cleanup. Oops. We'll do some cleanup here before we're done. So some of the things that I've learned about this type of character, about, like, you know, female, you know, appealing female characters, there are certain features that you want to be careful that you minimize properly, and there are features that you want to be careful to emphasize. Usually people will go through and add in, like, they'll minimize the nose, they'll minimize the ears, which we'll go through and do in a second here. In fact, let's do that now since we're talking about it. So minimize the ears. Let's do it from the side so we can get the right areas. Let's turn off perspective. Okay. So in fact, let's turn on local symmetry. This local symmetry makes it so you can scale from the place where you're at, but you got to be careful that you're not doing that while you have that center line unmasked, because it'll mess up your symmetry, and it's terrible. I hate that. It's a lot harder to restore your symmetry when you're having to fight against the local symmetry. And let's go ahead and solidify that up, and then there we go. So yeah, minimize the ears, minimize the nose. You want to emphasize things like eyes and mouth. And it depends on the look that you're trying to go for too. So it's a matter of trying to figure out what their character type is like. If the character is really intelligent or full of wonder, or really young, or things like that, you'll have wide or really open eyes, very appealing eyes. If the character is old, then their eyes will probably be droopier. If they're cunning or malicious, then they'll probably be very pointed eyes and very squinty. You can go through and play with shape and opening and things like that a whole lot, so that you can really change the way that your character looks. Let's see. Let's use maybe topological. I'm going to unmask this portion. You'll see that it's like, because I was moving it without it having been properly unmasked, you'll see that it's kind of crunching those points, so I'll have to clean those up some. But for right now, let's kind of focus on getting the right shape. Feels like they're too high, so let's bring them down a little bit. Let's turn off local symmetry. I don't need it right now. Let's see. Considering how small the ears are, why did you favor aligning the bottom of the ear with the bottom of the nose and not somewhere higher? It may change later on. In fact, it's too far forward. I kind of want to pull it back some. So it'll kind of change depending on what I'm trying to do. Usually these sorts of characters, I find it to be more appealing having it line up down there. But yeah, so that's why I have that lining up kind of more in that area. But it may change later on to be a little higher, a little lower. Depends on what I feel like is more appealing as I progress throughout the model. Hey Indy, how you doing? Oh, good. I'm glad that your model's turning out the way that you like. That's really nice. It's really fun to hear, and it's fun to see a project progress like that. Do all professional artists, or is it best practice to start with a low poly mesh, make base mesh, then go for a high poly? It depends on what it is that you want to do. if you see people jumping straight into high poly, then either they're like way too. It depends on what you're doing too, because like what I like to do. This is responding to Dark Knight over on YouTube. Um, Best practice or professional practice to use a base mesh or to start with a low poly. It depends on where you are and what your workflow is. So for instance, at Blizzard, the workflow is to go through, model the low poly base mesh, and then create the high poly stuff afterwards, so that way they can go through and start doing all the rigs and all the test animations and the textures and things like that simultaneously. Um, at at Disney, usually there's a base mesh that's created. It's low poly like this, and then you can go through and you can kind of step up into higher range topology, so you can refine shapes and things like that. But the thing that allows you to do, similar sort of idea, so that it can be passed on to the riggers and to the surfacing artists and to things like that, so that it can be worked on and refined in other areas as well, animation tests, etc. And it can also be used for other characters. You go through and use the same base mesh across the different characters, and that simplifies things in every way. So yeah, that's a huge bonus to starting low poly. A lot of people who start high poly don't have to worry about a digital production agenda, if you will. Being able to have somebody else go through rig and animate. They don't have to worry about somebody else having, they don't have to worry about much of anything else. They're just sculpting usually. Either that, or they're just doing concept sculpts and trying to take those in and make them so that they are just achieving a look, trying to figure out a look, a design. Like you'll see Raphael Grassetti do stuff like that, where he'll start off with a base mesh just for the base forms, or he'll start off with like a sphere and just go in and just design it, just straight up design it. Base meshes can have pluses and minuses because they can make everything kind of start to look the same. So that's one of the things to be very careful of when you're using a base mesh. But yeah, so that's kind of why I like to use a base mesh though, because it allows me to one, already have kind of a basis for controlling where my landmarks are. In fact, real quick, let me show you guys something, because this is really helpful, and this will be helpful to me in keeping the ideas of this particular character in line with what I need to actually achieve. So I'm going to change the poly paint colors on the character so that she's more aligned with the character here. I can do a couple different things. I can either go like this, hit Z to go into my spotlight, hover over the color I want to select, hit C, C as in Charlie, to be able to select the skin color. So now you can see it's selected over here in my color. You'll notice that if I don't have the spotlight active, I can hit C, and it'll actually select my background color. You see, it went to gray instead of to the green. So I have to have that active, hit C, and that'll select the color on the spotlight that I'm trying to select. Let's wait for that to go through. Okay, sweet. Okay, let's jump back out of that. So we can either do that, come over here to our RGB, hit color, go fill, and you'll see now we've got the color of the mermaid there. That's great. I want to try instead to come over here to my poly paint tab and say adjust colors and say frame, and then we can come over here and we can say hue, and we can adjust it so that it's kind of close in that green neighborhood. Kind of pull around the saturation and the intensity and things like that here. You get something that's really close. This way, now that we have something that's really close, now if we needed to, we could go in and we can paint things in. We don't have to worry about things being as stark of a contrast. It makes it a lot easier for us to adjust and make it so that it reads the way that we want it to. What's up? Okay. Quentin, how you doing, dude? Close the door. I'm talking to other people. Let's do the same thing here. So because the eyebrows, I don't have to worry about a color variation with the eyebrows. I'm just going to go ahead and pick the color from the eyebrows. So Z to activate my spotlight, C to select the color. Do the same thing. Color, fill object. Okay, so now we got that. We'll leave the eyelashes dark. Let's get the lip color. Let's come out here. Okay. So I went ahead and just hid the lips, and then I'm going through and I'm going to I went ahead and just Control A to be able to mask everything else, and then I want to go through and color fill the lips. The reason I want to do it like that is because I don't want the color from the lips to leak onto the rest of the face. So what I can do now to kind of fill in the gaps, make it so it's a little bit better, a little bit cleaner. I'm going to take my selection tool, Control Shift, and select, pardon me, that select rectangle, change to select lasso. Then I'm going to Control Shift click on the edge and the other edge. You'll notice it kind of selected weird. It should be fine. Just Control A, Control Shift A to be able to unhide everything. So now we've got just that edge loop unmasked, I guess. So this is super helpful, so that I can go through and I can pick, say for instance Control H to be able to hide that. So this right now, the edge of those lips is the same color as the rest of the face. I want it to be the same. I want it to feel like it's the same color as the lips, without distracting from the rest of the face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my color, I'm going to take it down to somewhere like 30-ish, okay, and then we're going to go color, fill object. Okay, so now you can see it kind of bridges the gap a little bit. If it's not quite enough, we can just come in, fill object a time or two more. You see that's a little bit too much. It's going too much into that, that fuzzy range. So I'm going to leave it like something like that. Okay, unmask. Okay, so now we've got this going, we can start to really play with these eye shapes and figure out the rest of our character. Okay, so I'm going to pull, her eye shape is a lot less almond-like. Let's clean this up. This is a mess. This got so messy. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Here, let's do this. Pull that, pull that, pull that. That's a little bit of a mess. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm just going to try to clean up these eyes because I feel like keeping these eyes clean will be helpful. Do a quick cleanup pass on some of these landmark pieces. So these polygroups, one of the things that I learned with the polygroups is to put them in a place to help me understand where those transitions ought to be happening. So you notice that there's this kind of turquoise polygroup for the outside of that eyelid, and then there's the yellow polygroup that kind of goes to the underneath the brow area, and it goes down onto the cheek as well. But what's important is kind of that transition spot where those two meet up. I've got polygroups down here on the different parts of the nose. It's something that my mentor Zach Petrock taught me, was creating these sorts of polygroups so that you can control those shapes and keep track of your landmarks. So yeah, so like yeah, Randy. So long as nobody changes the topology, that's kind of one of the hard things, is that if you're working with characters that are dramatically different, you have to create one-offs. That means that that the topology was different on that model versus the others. But yeah, so sometimes that does happen, and it's important to feel like, to not feel constrained if you are doing something that that is dramatically different from the other models that you've done. Don't feel absolutely constrained by the shape. I mean, the idea of the software being easy to use is for it to enable the artist to do all sorts of things and to really liberate the artist as a creator. And so yeah, that's one of the most wonderful things about ZBrush, is that it really does a lot to super enable you as an artist. You can just worry about being creative, and the technical side of it, there's a lot of technical stuff that you can do inside of ZBrush to really boost your ability to what should we dig it to be able to kind of supplement the artistic side, but yeah, so it's it really does a lot to free you as a creator. And yes, Nerve Takia on YouTube. So the spotlight mode, you can use your move brush. There are a few different brushes, mostly the move based brushes, possibly curved brushes, I can't remember, that you can use when spotlight projection is turned on. Otherwise it's yeah, you kind of gotta turn it off so you can use your different clay and standard brushes. Yeah, it's a helpful tool. Spotlight was the reason that's on by default is because Spotlight was originally created and intended as a texturing tool. So if I wanted to, I could come over here and I could say, let's turn spotlight projection back on. If we come over here and turn on standard, let's turn off Z-add, turn on RGB. If I start painting, you'll see I'm getting the color from the picture on my model. So that's kind of the intent with whatchamadiggit, with Spotlight. I don't use it like that very often. I did use it on, you'll see my fish bot down in the corner. That fish bot, I did use Spotlight to be able to get the original kind of concept painting uh, projected onto the 3D model so that I could texture it in that way. It was super, super helpful, and it's a great way to be able to texture your model. But let's see, smooth that out a little bit. It's something that's kind of tricky to play with because it will take your it'll take your, like, the way that you're looking at the model, your camera direction into account. All sorts of things. That's not what I want. Come on, come on, come on. Why is it like that? Come on. Huh. It's supposed to line up with the transpose line. I don't know why it's not. Oh well. It's not working. There's spotlight projection. Let's do it like this. Deformation, inflate. Kind of pull in the inflate a little bit. Okay, one of the things I need to go through and do, let's smooth these shoulders out a little bit. And we can kind of pull the shapes back into it. I don't want the shoulders to feel too heavy, but I also need to make sure and start pulling in some forearm form. I need to make sure that these shapes are overlapping and creating the right, oops, creating the right shapes. Okay, I'm trying to go in and kind of de-accentuate some of these forms in the back and to control them. Not that they're super important to how the the rest of the form or the illustration, the pose. I mean, especially if we're only going to see it from the front. I usually like to do a turntable and be able to show things on the back how they are. So I like to, finish a model versus just doing a quick, crazy speed sculpt type thing. Yeah, transition fold in the eyelids. Yeah, absolutely. So having that the landmarks marked with the polygroup transitions, that's really, really helpful. Let me see, can you cut and sew UVs on ZBrush, or do you use different software? So for UVs, it depends on how refined I need them. I do have a tutorial on ArtStation and on Gumroad about doing UVs inside of ZBrush. Currently, the native tool, the UV master inside of ZBrush, is not the best for creating, final production ready UVs for most things. When I was working on How to Train Your Dragon for environment pieces, rocks, we would usually go through and just use the basic unfold inside of ZBrush and use that in production. It was quick and easy, and it made it so we didn't have to worry about really anything. I mean, especially when surfacing is procedural anyway, and meaning that it's node based, so they're going through and throwing parameters on there to make things function under circumstances. So if you're shading a rock, it's going to have a base color, which is going to have different textures, different color variations and noise, things like that. And then they're going to take circumstantial effects like edge detection to be able to add, different highlights, different roughness maps, different things like that, and it becomes a lot easier to generate textures for environments that way. With characters, it's a lot different. Let's see. I'm gonna put a polygroup on this. Let's do this. So one of the things I'm seeing is that it's kind of hard to control the shape of the breasts of the character, just like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate it, give it a polygroup, and now I can, mask it out, make it a little bit easier to control the shape. In fact, if I want to, I can isolate it, invert my selection, Control A, and then select it. That way it's got the border masked. And this will allow me to better control the interior of that shape. Like for instance, I didn't want this, I don't want the breast to be huge. She doesn't seem like she's a very busty girl. So see how we're going to kind of bring these down in size a little bit. You see my center line got a little bit messed up. So I'm just going to smooth. This is going to kind of average the points out. It's not going to be very pretty. So yeah, I've got to go through and do some re-sculpting to kind of make sure this is in the right place. But that's kind of the easiest way that I've found to restore my symmetry. One of the other things I'm going to need to check is that, if I step up in my subdivision levels, you see it's still messed up. So I've got to go through and kind of do the same thing here. Not a huge deal, but it is something that you got to do, or else your symmetry will be just a little bit off. And if you're like me, it could drive you bonkers. You know what, since this is a mermaid, let's just go ahead and eliminate our legs. To be able to eliminate legs and modify your mesh in this sort of way, you're going to have to get rid of your subdivision levels. So I go to my highest one because I can reconstruct. I go to my highest one, hit delete lower, then I can go down. Let me see, I've also got to get rid of part of the mesh that's, this bottom part of the hips here. Okay, so now we've got this. So now we can go through and kind of pull the tail out. So we're going to go ahead and say delete hidden. Okay, so now that's all gone. So now if I want to, I can go through and I can say reconstruct subdiv. Reconstruct. It's not wanting to let. Oh, it's probably. I probably just need to take off another loop here. Let's say it. Let's do that. Delete hidden construct. Yeah, there we go. So that's one of the things to watch out for. It is that you have the right number of loops, or else it'll create problems. I ran into that problem as well with this other character that I made the other day. Oh, turn off solo. So you see, I've got her, and she was a really fun one to make. But you'll notice, like, let's see, let's turn off the dynamic. So you see, I mean, I've gone through and I've modified the topology to create a sense of, to create the base for the horns, and it's great. It worked, and I'm so sure that I calculated my my topology properly in building these out. I took specific considerations to do that. And it did not want to let me reconstruct. I go to reconstruct and it says unable to reconstruct lower subdivision levels. So, whatever. It's life. So yeah. Anyways, she just stayed the way she is. I was able to use her. This is essentially the same base. same basis for this other character that we're creating. So, you know, you do what you can. So we're gonna go back into the new one, and let's actually hit save. Let's go into social, mermaid. But to do this in your style, let's do that. The name of the artist, Evelyn Suarez, with a theta. And let's do this. Draw this in your style. Evelyn Suarez, 12K, 01. It helps me to keep things in order. Helps me to keep track of where my models are. Does starting from a base mesh prevent you from making large changes? Do you think the base mesh has a large influence on the new design you're trying to sculpt? Yes, it does have an influence on the design you're trying to sculpt. You'll notice that, like, if it can have two effects. It depends on what you want. So if it's creating a sense of unity, then you know, some people want that. Some people like that and really try to achieve that. So it's a good thing for them. Otherwise, it creates a sense of, you know, everything looking the same, and then it becomes boring and monotonous. So when I try to create my base characters, like for instance, this character is the same base mesh as, where is it? It'd be in here. As this character. Oh, crazy materials. Z plugin, fill materials. All right. Why didn't it fill the eyes? Material, color, fill. Huh. It's probably got a texture. Okay. Means the shirt has a texture too. Alright, and the arms and everything has a texture. Everything has, you get a texture, you get a texture. The ladybugs also have a texture. That's why they look wonky. It's so dumb that they, but you can come over here, I think, and you can say fill material. So technically I could leave that on, say fill material. The shirt, texture on, fill material, eyes, texture on, fill material. But yeah, so same base mesh, okay, same topology, but really stretched and turned to something different. I actually took this mesh. That's where I got this mesh from. So kind of fun. Anyway, let's go ahead. Let's keep doing this. Trying to decide. Let's do it. I'm going to take the arms. And I'm going to start moving them up. This is like the hardest pose to sculpt if you have clean topology and you want to keep clean topology. I had another one that I did just a week or two ago. Got it up on my ArtStation. I got some messages. I'll have to check that out. I did this one based off of Ross Tran's Pink Witch. And that arm was so tricky to go through and sculpt. And the reason why it's tricky is because you've got all the twist and you've got all, like, the way that those points on top of the shoulder kind of mush together. It can. I'll show you what I mean. So as I go, you see it's like everything's collapsing on itself. Even just to be able to exaggerate some, you see how it's collapsing. So a lot of what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I will pull it up just a little bit instead. So let's pull it up to like there, and then we'll unmask, and then we'll start using my move brush to kind of readjust things, smooth things out a little bit, just tweaking it, trying to get the shapes to work right. Okay, a lot of times I'm coming up here and just adjusting that because these points are going to create kind of a crease right where that joint is, and it's going to kind of allow me to get a little bit of a round deltoid kind of flowing over onto the lumbar area there. So those are going to be important. I'm also trying to adjust kind of where this topology transition happens, the polygroup transition happens. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of coming up. Okay, my Z intensity on my smooth, I'm going to take it down to like below 10. I don't always work with like very specific numbers, usually just like 8 or 9. It kind of just depends on what it is that I'm working on and how subtle I want the effect to be. But that was a trick that my mentors at Petrock taught me, and that I feel is extremely useful, is taking that smooth brush and smoothing it out, making it less como lo diga, less powerful. Okay, so let's go ahead, let's do some more of this. Okay. Okay, so there's going to be a ton of fixing. I mean, you can see like it's a mess. That is a mess. But let me see. Let me check some of your comments here. How can you export a model's texture in polypaint if it has multiple materials used? So it can't export the materials, although there is a way to be able to bake the materials. I don't remember how to do that. I don't remember how to do that. However, I do know that that's something that you can do, is bake your materials to your mesh. However, it won't export things like your roughness maps or your normal maps without you doing that manually. So so that's something to keep in mind, is that you can't do that automatically. You can, however, yeah, you see like the breast got totally like torn up. You can, however, export your diffuse maps, your color maps, and you can export your, let's go ahead and bring that up and smooth it out and make it pretty. You can export your normal maps and things like that, displacements, through a manual process involving, the menus over here. You've got your texture maps, you've got normal maps, displacement maps, etc. over here. Vector displacement, that's super helpful, but I've never used it, so I wouldn't be able to tell you how to use it. I suspect it's similar though to how you would use the whatchamadiggits, the other normal maps and displacement map features. By the way, guys, there is going to be a super special stream today, like an hour after I get off, with, um, oh my goodness, Joseph Drust, Joseph the Man Drust. Had to think for a second. And it's like, he's a friend of mine. What in the heck is his name? Um, yeah, so he'll be on. What is it that he's doing? He's doing something special. It was like, um, golly, it seemed like it was some sort of collaborative stream with a really cool company, and we might have to check the calendar to be able to figure out exactly what it is. But I just remember it being like, I need to watch that one. um, yeah, anytime Joseph or Paul get on, like for instance, I have one other stream this month, which will be not next week, but a week after that. And after that stream, similar sort of setup, Paul Gabriel will be on. I believe he'll be talking about lighting inside of ZBrush, which is something that I'm always trying to get better at. So I'll totally be trying to tune into that and learn more from the master Paul. Okay, I'm gonna come over here. Let's see. Yeah, let's grab that one. So same trick from earlier, just gonna kind of mask that out by by using the Control Shift, click on the edge group, the edge loop, sorry, with the select lasso selected. Okay, and that'll allow me to be able to get control that transition. Such a tricky pose to work with. So you can see, because of the way that the topology is flowing, it's allowing me to get more of that natural, yeah, in Drust we trust. In Joseph we trust. Yeah. So the reason I don't want to cut off the arm and then rebridge it is because if I were to cut off the arm and rebridge it, I wouldn't have the same topology flow. And I mean, I don't think I have UVs on this character at all. Yeah, I mean, I don't have UVs on this at all. But if I did have UVs on this character, I'd want to preserve the UVs. So it's better to go through and sculpt it properly. One, for the sake of the practice, but two, for the sake of just making sure that it's clean. You get the proper edge flow, something that's more predictable. If I wanted to modify the pose a little bit, I know that I could take it and get certain results. So there we go. So we're going to be taking that and making that kind of crease where that shoulder transition is. Have you guys done much of anything for Mermaid? Has anybody participated in Tom Bancroft's challenges, or are you doing your own thing, or are you following Micah Schneider's? Are you guys following anybody's challenges, or are you following anybody's work that you really enjoy? If you follow an account you really like what they do, especially in light of Mermaid and the fun stuff, feel free to drop the link in the comments. be really fun to be able to see what you guys what you guys follow. Um, yeah, so McMont, yeah, I'm using kind of a combination of the regular smooth and the alternative smooth. Um, the alternative smooth is nice because it allows you to kind of better maintain the volume. So right there, I'll use it, you know. Um, but yeah, I'll also use the regular smooth depending on what it is I'm trying to achieve. Good eye. It's good to bring that up. Turn off the topology, kind of get more grounded in what the mesh is actually looking like. Sometimes that's helpful to kind of turn things off and tune in to what's there, what the volumes are looking like, rather than I need to refine this collarbone too. So pull this down, pull this out. Yeah, okay, so let me see. UV Master is good for getting rough UVs on anything. They're not. Yeah, UV Master is it's a good tool. It's a great tool. Um, it's not the best for production ready UVs because it's harder to really. Sorry, I'm going to silence my phone. It's kind of a pain when it buzzes and I'm trying to think. Um, it's not good for production ready UVs because they're not optimized. They're not the easiest to clean. Pixelogic has been working on a tool for a couple of years. I don't know where they're at on it. I mean, they announced it in the summit. Uh, might have been 3 years ago now. It's one that I keep waiting for. Is the 3D peel? I think is what they called it. Um, it was supposed to come out in beta, one of the betas I was in a while ago, but it never did, and so I was like, no, I wanted that. um, yeah, so we're getting some of this. Sometimes what I'll do, I always try to keep the pose symmetrical when I'm working on this sort of thing at first. I freaking love ZModeler, so don't crash on it. How is selecting edge loop? Hold on. Let me see. Selecting edge loop from using polygroup option. Okay, so yeah, the select lasso sculptor expert on Twitch was asking about how I was doing the selecting one edge loop thing. So I have if I hold Control Shift instead of my standard select rectangle, I went ahead and used the select lasso. And so you'll see like if I Control Shift click on an edge loop, you'll see it goes through and it hides that edge loop. So if I do two of them and then Control Shift and then Control A, that'll mask everything that's visible. Control Shift A will then unhide everything, and it'll have that one isolated edge loop unmasked. And so now I'm able to go through and manipulate just that edge loop. I use that a lot when I'm trying to modify my landmarks. Like if I wanted to change the intensity of the crease on the nose, I do that. The female base mesh is my own. It's one that I developed based off of what I've learned through working with Disney and DreamWorks and Warner Brothers. Um, things that I've learned through tutorials and years of dying trying to make something effective. Um, Base meshes are hard. Good base meshes are even harder. Okay, so I'm going to pull that in. Let's see. So one of the things that I might do, I might pull my witch character up so that I can go ahead and reference her shoulders. Okay, so now these shoulders, I do need to pull them up quite a bit. They're too low. Anatomically, what would be happening is that the clavicle and everything would be raising up. And so like you can see, like by doing that, I'm getting a lot of anatomy up top, not as much down low. So I'm going to do this. And then let's just kind of pull that up a little bit. Okay. Need to kind of angle it out some, so let's angle that. Okay, so now I want to go through and kind of start refining this shape here. Okay, the anatomy is really, really bugged up, but you know, we'll fix that little by little. Yeah, let's go ahead. I want this edge loop to kind of be on the inside of that angel wing, but these angel wings, when the arms are lifted up, they're going to be pulled up more close to the side. So what I'm going to do is do this, 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 Control A, Control Shift A, so we get just that edge loop isolated. If you didn't catch that, that was, you know, so again, using my select lasso, Control Shift A here, here, and here, and that's going to isolate the middle edge along there. I want to make sure I'm getting both edge loops on either side. It makes it a lot easier. What do I use for rendering? Anything I can. Usually I use just ZBrush, and then I render out passes, and then I compile those passes inside of Photoshop. You know what? In fact, let's do this. I'm gonna take that and smooth that so that we get cleaner canvas to work with, if you will. Okay, now let's do this. And instead of getting that other loop, we're just going to use this inside one. Okay. Just going to clean this shape some. Using my mask lasso. I like mask lasso. I use mask lasso probably more than I use mask pen or any other mask tool. I find it to be more flexible, and it kind of depends on what it is that I'm doing, but usually I'm using it for this sort of function. Okay, so now that I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and get that one too. Okay, so right through here, I'm going to go through, and I'm trying to think about how much I want to consider the rib cage versus the design. The design is very streamlined, and rib cage is not so streamlined. So yeah, not entirely sure what to do about that yet. For the moment, I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to go through and block in the lower body. and I may very well actually go ahead and that looks, I don't like how that looks. So let's go ahead, let's smooth that some, pull it up some. I'm trying to feel like my own back. Try to see how that would work. Let's go ahead and pull that around. That's starting to feel better. Okay. I'm going to use that alternative smooth. It's going to kind of pull this edge loop down so I can create more of a creased transition, a harsher transition between the deltoid and those lats. Plus, let's start pulling this collarbone up a little bit. So I'm going to probably put in a little bit more anatomy than the original design has. I'm trying to, when I try to do stuff like this, I try to think about a simplified, stylized way to do it. Let's do this. I'm going to say, how do I want to do this? Okay, let's go up to our highest subdivision level. Let's say delete lower. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead, I'm going to say, Z modeler, let's skip that until the next start. We're going to say close, convex hole, polygroup flat, resolution at the minimum, and that should be good. Okay, so let's do that. What I want to do, I just control clicked on it, so I select it with my masking. Hey Ricardo, how you doing? How are you doing? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to reset the rotation of the tool by holding Alt and clicking on the rotate button there, and I'm just going to hold Control and pull it down, and that created an extrusion. It's a great 3D modeling, box modeling, hard surface trick. Okay, so I want to go through and think about pretty much how long the character would have been in the beginning. Let's go through and scale that in. Pull it out some more. Because I want the proportions to feel somewhat like what we can expect to see in real life. Real life mermaid, right? Right. Anyway, so we got this going on, and if you want, we can go through and we can just very easily color this little lady. Okay, so because we went through and we did the extrusion, in order for this to reconstruct, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to say delete hidden, Z modeler, and we're going to say insert single edge loop. Okay, so now because I have that, we should be able to go through and say reconstruct subdivision levels. Okay, I want to be able to do more than that. Okay, so 1, 2, but that's not enough because that's dividing the division once. So we got to divide this one as well. Oops. 2. And this one up here, 1, 2. Now you could go through and use the multiple to be able to get the even spaced, but yeah, I find that to be just fine. So I want it to be twice that much. Go figure, right? So what we're going to do, change to multiple edge loops. 1, 2. This will help us to keep track of which ones we have done, which ones we haven't done. Okay, now